Plants vs. Zombies is no doubt a staple of my childhood, but what if it had achievements? Oh, wait, it already does? Usually we play games that don't have achievements already. What's the point? Plants vs. Zombies has a pretty much forgotten DS port, which means, well, it's on my favorite website of all time, RetroAchievements. This set has 64 pretty challenging achievements, from simply completing the game not once, but twice, special conditions within each world, like say, beating a night stage with no sun or beating a pool stage with no aquatic plants, and also achievements for completing all puzzles, all minigames, and endless mode on hard. So this game is a monolith of a set, especially because it takes on average like 5 hours just to beat the adventure mode. This set is gonna take me God only knows how long. Let's stop stalling and prolonging this intro and start our initial playthrough of the game. Listen, if you've played Plants vs. Zombies before, this run won't be all that crazy for you to see. But stick around, I like to make things harder for myself. So we start off in day with our tutorial level where we only have one plant to our name, the humble pea shooter. We don't have the sunflower yet, so we need to rely on sun falling from the sky in order to get enough sun to plant more of these dudes. There's only one row of grass, so naturally the few zombies we need to defend from our house can only go in this row. You know, they could just go around. Like, I have no defenses here. But for stage 1, we unlock the sunflower, which is like the plant in this game. 1-2 opens up 2 more rows of grass, which means things are getting serious. Now, since we have sunflower, we can plant them, which will generate more sun, which means more plants. Since we don't have options right now, I planted 2 rows of sunflowers and then 2 rows of pea shooters in front of it. When the final wave came, they were no match for me, and we unlocked the cherry bomb, which is another Pajamajohn favorite. Still with only 2 rows of grass, things aren't getting too crazy yet. Oh my god, this dude has a cone on his head! For winning and beating this stage, we unlock the walnut, which as you might guess, is a wall. Now things open up to full size, 5 whole rows of grass and plant action, which means we got a lot more to worry about here. With this Newfoundland, there are positives and negatives. For one, we get more space for sunflowers, but on the other hand, more space we need to defend. I've evolved from 2 rows of flowers to 3 so I can start racking up big amounts of sun. The conehead zombies I mentioned in the last level have more health than normal zombies, so a lot of the time if I see one coming, I'm forced to add another row of pea shooter to make sure we take him out, which was almost bad for me because I had to leave the top row defenseless until a cone zombie was already on his way. This is where my brand new walnut became incredibly useful. Placed one of those suckers down and he munched away for a long time, so I could take him out easy peasy. Look, a row of 3 shooters. This is also the first time I used a cherry bomb to take out zombies in an area where I had fewer defenses. Make that 4 shooters, by the way. Now we get the shovel, which we get a tutorial by our crazy neighbor, Crazy Dave. We just drag the shovel over to who we want to dig up, and we're done. But he surprises us with something sinister. Something weird. Walnut bowling, let's go, baby! Let's knock down those zombies down like pins! But this is the first conveyor level, where the game randomly chooses from a pool of plants to give us. This time, we do walnut bowling, which, well, we roll the nuts. There's also an exploding one, which is good to use when there's a huge wave of zombies. I like this level and I'm excited to do the minigame later. Oh, we got the potato mine. Goofy teeth! But after the fun and games, we go back to a normal level, which introduces the vault zombie, who can vault over the first plant in your defense. I want to also note that you may have noticed I have only been showing one screen this whole time. That's because the top screen is mostly just showing a video of zombies walking along. It also shows our level progress, but that's not important to you, because you're not playing, and I get to curate the clips you get to see. God. I actually used the potato mine to take out the first zombie because it is cheap and allows me to stall buying a pea shooter, in turn making it so I can farm a bit more sun at the very start. But eventually all good things come to an end and I need to plant pea shooters. This time though, I went crazy mode and decided to go for not 3, but 4 rows of sun, because I'm greedy. Once I saw the vaulter, I placed a walnut on him so he would waste his vault, but I didn't have enough firepower in his row or this pole vaulter's row, so they started eating through my plants. I placed a walnut, then decided maybe I could take them both out with a cherry bomb. Then the first pole vaulter ate through most of my flowers before I could put a pea shooter in the back. Honestly, embarrassing for World 1 level 6 if I'm already doing poorly. That is not good. But I repaired the damage done to my defenses, and as that final wave came in, I cherry bombed for max damage and took out the rest of the zombies for the snow pea. So now, for level 7, I have 2 types of pea shooters, normal and the snow pea, which slows down zombies that it shoots. The only thing about it is that it is super expensive, so it's hard to use. This time around, I decided that I would start to plant my peas in the back and the sunflowers in the front. The idea is that my pea shooters won't ever get eaten, which works for now, since the zombies aren't getting too close to me too often. They ain't eating many of my plants. So now we get to see the snow pea in action. Look at that. Everything is blue, dabba-dee-dabba-da. The snow pea really helps with the pole vaulters because they can't get close enough to my sunflowers to even jump over one. I really like the snow pea. It's one of my favorites. Once we do this level, we get the chomper, which is another one of my favorite plants. It's like a Venus flytrap kinda, and when you place it down, it eats the zombie right in front of it, no matter its strength. The only downsides are that it's pretty expensive and they chew for a very long time. This next level was honestly very short. It introduces the bucket zombie, but I used a chomper to take him out, and that was about it in the level. But now we get the repeater, who fires 2 peas at a time. I decided that it would be a fun challenge to not use a normal pea shooter in the next level and only use the repeater, because why the heck not? This was a bit challenging at the start. I barely got a repeater down in time to fight the first zombie. But for the next zombie, there wasn't a sunflower in the way, so I didn't have to rush. Pretty soon though, a conehead came in the way, and I had to place a walnut down so he didn't destroy my defenses. This level can be pretty overwhelming. Like, there are multiple times where I needed to walnut to save my life. But to be honest, it's my fault because all of my damage plants are expensive. Eventually, this pole vaulter came along and ate one of my sunflowers. Then a big bad bucket head came along and called for backup with another. But I got snow peas down, and now there are vaulters. I am overwhelmed, please help. But I made it to the end. Bada bing, bada boom, explode. And what's this? A letter, poorly written, and it says, "Hello, we are about to launch an all-out attack on your house. Sincerely, the zombies." Well, they seem like a nice bunch. Now, 1-10, the final level in day, is another conveyor level. We have a variety of pretty much every plant we've unlocked. Well, except the sunflower. They're prejudiced against my boy, but I quickly made a nice layer of walnut and chompers behind them because, well, chompers can eat past walnuts. I had tons of rows of repeaters and normal pea shooters and a second row of walnuts. It was honestly very satisfying. Towards the end, everything was almost completely filled in. And here's something super interesting. In the final wave, I used a cherry bomb and it exploded 10 or more zombies at once, which unlocked my first achievement. And also an achievement for beating the first world. Now on to World 2, Night, where things get mixed up quite a bit. As the name of World 2 might suggest, it is now nighttime, which has a few different implications. We no longer have sun falling from the sky, so we have more trouble building up our defenses. But since we can still use the sunflowers, we should be fine. Also, I now have the puff shroom, which is cheap at 0 sun. So we can build those up early on to help with anything coming our way at the start of the levels. Then the last thing to note right now about Night is that there are graves in the way. They basically just spawn zombies during big waves. There's also the newspaper zombie who gets mad when you destroy his nightly paper. So for 2-1, I just went crazy with the puff shrooms until I could add in some pea and ice shooters towards the very end. But even still, it was pretty easy, which makes me think this achievement we're gonna go for down the line will also be easy. We get the sun shroom next, which I never ever use. I don't really like it. I mean, it is cheaper than a sunflower, but it gives you less sun for a while until it grows. I'd rather just use the sunflower personally. Crazy Dave over here tells us when we make $750, he will check back in with us. This stage is pretty similar to the last, just with some more higher damage enemies, making it more important that we get snow and normal pea shooters down. I built up the puff shrooms, then eventually replaced them with pea and ice guys. Nothing too crazy. A kaboom here, a chomper there, and we get the awesome fume shroom, which will help us with the screen door zombies in the next level. The screen doors block any normal pea attacks, but the fume shroom shoots fumes, and it goes through the screen door. So I played as normal until I saw the screen door and I placed the fume, and it was no problem for me to take out. For beating 2-3, I unlocked the Grave Buster, which allows me to eat the graves in the level. This makes the large waves of zombies easier, but before we start the next level, Dave sells us another seed slot for $750. We can now have 7 plants instead of 6. With this newfound luxury, I chose to change the plant layout. I went for sunflower, pea shooter, puff shroom, fume shroom, grave buster, cherry, and chomper. You know, I'm spontaneous and shit. But to be quite honest, this level isn't too crazy. There are a lot of graves, but I just focused on clearing them out, and then other than that, it was very easy. I had a pretty satisfying garden here. 3 sunflowers, 1 pea, 1 fume, 3 puffies, nice and clean and symmetrical. But towards the end, the goofy-ass screen door zombie got through my defenses. But he died to the mower at the end. Hey, the almanac. The almanac just teaches you about the plants, their stats, and the same for zombies. Keeping with the theme that every 5th level is a special stage, we have Whack-A-Zombie, another very fun minigame where we use a mallet to hit these zombies on the head. Sometimes they drop sun, which allows you to set up grave busters or potato mines or cherry bombs. But I'm a professional first-person shooter player, as everyone already knows, so I just did graves. My awesome reward for this level was the Hypno Shroom, which I honestly didn't get too much usage out of. I chose not to use it in the next stage, even though we have a new super tough zombie, the football zombie, which I didn't have nearly enough defense up when he spawned in the first time, so I just let him run into a mower as I focus on building my other rows. This level was honestly very fast. I beat the other football with a cherry bomb to unlock the Scaredy Shroom, who does more damage than the Puff, but he's scared of spooky zombies, so he hides. I don't really know if this part of the video is that great content-wise, because each level is pretty similar. Build up defenses, kill the evil zombies, rinse and repeat. Don't get me wrong, when I'm actually playing, the gameplay loop is pretty amazing and addicting. PvZ does an amazing job of keeping you engaged for the entire runtime of each level. You need to be locked in and constantly farming, planting, and whatnot. But for watching, the only thing I can really do is tell you if there's anything new about each level, or if there's anything interesting that happened, which there really wasn't again until level 2-8, where there is this dancing zombie who spawns in other dancing zombies from the dead to dance with him. But that's about it in that level. We do get the Doom Shroom, which is literally a nuclear bomb. I used it in 2.9 instead of the cherry bomb. But once again, 2.9 was very similar to the last few. But don't worry, things are gonna get more and more interesting with each world. After 2.9, we get another message from the zombies that say they would like a midnight snack, and they want ice cream. So we're gonna have an awesome midnight ice cream extravaganza and hang out and be friends all together and live happily ever after, if they can ever get into my house. Level 10 is another conveyor level, which focuses more on the more interesting plants rather than just damage plants. Yeah, we get Scaredy, Puff, and Fume Shrooms, but most of the time we're getting more status effect plants, like Ice, Hypno, and Doom. Even still, I got to build up pretty decent defenses, but I used some Hypno Shrooms on football men, who went and ate other zombies for us. Cannibalism is bad, kids. Don't do it. I beat the stage for an achievement, and also the lily pad, which I'll get into at the start of World 3. First though, I want to break up this constant footage of PvZ with a little self-plug. I've been desperately trying to hit 5,000 subscribers for a while now, with the reward being that I will play the Super Mario 64 bonus subset. At the time of writing this script, we still haven't hit it, so please subscribe and like and comment. It means a lot. Thank you. Okay, into World 3. Pool. Now you might notice that the owner of this very fine house has a very large pool in the backyard that is honestly very thin. But as you may have guessed, plants cannot just float on the water, so we need to place a lily pad beforehand. So in a way, any plant that you want to put on the water is 25 sun more expensive. It's like a water tax. Also, this lily pad takes up an entire seed slot, so we're also nerfed in that area. The first few levels of pool are largely uninteresting. After 3-1 we get the squash, which is a one-time use plant that can, well, squash a zombie. Then after 3-2 we get the 3-peater, which shoots into 3 different rows. 3-3 introduces the snorkeling zombie who keeps his head underwater. So basically you can't hit him unless his head is popping out when he's eating something. I dealt with this by putting a walnut on a lily pad. And for beating this level we got the tangle kelp, which I didn't use. 3-4 was an extremely long level, so I went kind of crazy with my setup. Look how satisfying this was. I left spaces open behind the walnuts for potential squashes, but now that I think about it, I should have just brought chompers with me so I could use them there. For beating this stage, we find car keys, which opens up Crazy Dave's shop, where I could buy the much needed 8th seed slot. Now, level 5 is where things got very interesting. It has a minigame that is exclusive to the DS version of the game. I need to shout into the microphone in order to wake up my sleepy pea shooters. But ain't no way I was shouting. It was midnight when I was playing, so instead I blew into the microphone. Okay, I'll spare you from hearing that anymore. But basically you shout every once in a while to get your peas awake and supercharged. And when they're supercharged, well, they're supercharged. While this minigame is unique, it's not very tough at all. The pea shooters do really well at keeping you safe. I do appreciate that the developers put in some time to make a new minigame though. The reward for this stage was the jalapeno, which by the way is very important to equip because this stage introduces the Zomboni. I personally think the only reason they made the Zomboni was so they could make that pun, because he has has no business being near a pool. Basically, the Zomboni drives through everything in its way with no care in the world. And the jalapeno is great to both break it and also melt the snow it leaves behind. The reward for this level is another counter to the Zomboni, spikeweeds. These just pop the tires when they drive on it, and they also hurt zombies who walk over them. 3-7 was the same deal again, but this stage was really long, so I really perfected my setup. We have 2 layers of repeaters, 1 layer of snow pea, then a layer of chompers, then walnuts in front of them, and then finally we have the last column to the right being spikeweeds. Nothing can pass us now. Hey look, torchwood. Torchwood is cool because it makes your peas do more damage, but it makes snow peas obsolete, so now we got repeater torchwood instead of repeater snow pea. This level introduces the dolphin zombie, which I hate with a burning passion. They're kind of like the Volter of the sea. They hop over your first plant, but they are very fast. So if you're not prepared, they can run up on you. Thankfully, I didn't need to deal with that until the final wave, but it did almost take out both of my repeaters. For winning here, I got a big walnut, or a tall nut. This is the same as a walnut except with more health, and it can't be vaulted over or jumped over, so it's nice. Only thing is that it's hella expensive. 3-9 seriously was nothing to write home about. I just won. And bigly. Like the already established formula, 310 is a conveyor level. But this time our plant options are 3-peater, torchwood, tangleweed, tallnut, jalapeno, spikeweed, and squash. There are a ton of zombonis in this level and also losers that come after them in groups of 4. Things did look very dicey towards the middle, but I made it through with no casualties. Things also looked very bad in the bottom row towards the end. I actually let a zombie hit the mower for the win and an achievement. Oh, we also got the brand new sea shroom, which is like the puff shroom but for water. World 4 is fog, where you basically can't see half of the board. That is a very challenging aspect of the game here. So this fog covers up the right half of the screen, giving you less time to react to what's coming, and you also need to end up memorizing what you've planted. Thankfully, we get plants that help with that problem. After beating 4-1, we get the lantern, which breaks through the fog on pretty much half the screen. Other than that, this world is a mix of what World 2 and 3 were. For beating level 2, we get the cactus. Why didn't they give him a unique name? He's just cactus. But the cactus is gonna come in handy a lot throughout the rest of this playthrough. Pretty much anytime we see one of these balloon zombies who can just fly over the stage, by using a cactus, boom, it pops a balloon and into the ground they plummet. Another plant that I started using here was the doom shroom. It is way better than the cherry bomb because it can take up every row if placed correctly. The start of levels in fog are really hard, mostly because it takes a long time to rack up sun. And then each placement of a sunflower takes 75 once you get into the water, since you also have to place a lily pad. I actually accidentally unlocked an achievement in level 3 since I didn't use any fog clearing plants. It happened completely by accident. We just got the blower, which I didn't use very much. It blows away fog and balloon zombies, so really it would have been helpful to use, but I underestimated its potential for now. In 4-4, I decided I would set up my cactuses in the very back. I don't know why, that just felt right to me. And for winning this very boring level, I got a taco, but it's not just any taco. It's Crazy Dave's taco. Dave pays us $1,000 for the taco, and it's onto Vase Breaker. Basically, you press random vases in order to see what'll come out. Sometimes zombie, sometimes plant. We're gonna get very familiar with this later on, don't you worry. But for now, things aren't too difficult. Just build up defenses, and you're good. For beating 2-5, we get the split pea, which will come in handy right about now. The split pea, like Voldemort, has a head on the back of his head, a repeater that can shoot backwards. And you may be thinking, John, how on God's green earth is that helpful? Zombies come from the right. There's nothing to shoot on the left. Au contraire, young one. These mine zombies dig underneath the garden and flank. Smart if we didn't have the split pea. But other than that fun little gimmick, we unlocked a minigame from inside of this present. We get the star fruit for this level, which from watching speedruns, I know is a good plant, but I don't know how to use it, so I probably won't. 4-7 is the same thing as 4-6, just this time it's harder because a lot of bucket heads. For this level, we unlock Pumpkin. Man, again with the unoriginal names? Come on, dude. I can't lie, I am very happy this world is almost over. I hate fog. I hate not seeing. It hurts my head and makes me irrationally upset. I just want to see, man. This is a 3-flag level with a pogo zombie. I was not prepared for this when it was going for an undefended mowerless row, so I had to use a doom shroom on him. Alternatively, if I was smart, I would have had a big walnut. I got through 4-8, thankfully, unlocking the magnet shroom. 4-9 is much of the same, just very long. This time I brought along tall nuts because they are tall enough to keep the pogos from jumping over. This is your mother. Please come over to my house for meatloaf. Leave your front door open and your lawn unguarded. Sincerely, Mom, not the zombies. Well, that seems normal. Oh, God. God, oh my God. Now this is the worst thing in the world, storm level. I hate this level because no, now we don't have fog. Instead, the level is dark and we just get little teeny tiny glimpses of what's going on. It is also a conveyor level, so I guess I'll just go fuck myself. But really, I don't know, man. Starfruit, pumpkin, cacti, squid, magnet. Actually, the magnet was very useful in this level. I won't be mean to the game. It took the helmets off of these dudes. Not too much for me to say here, considering I can't show anything. Win level for cabbage pult and achievement, which now I can be happy again. Welcome to Roof! Roof is like everything we've done in the past combined. We must plant inside of pots, since obviously the roof does not have soil. And then also here's another thing standing in our way. The roof is slanted, so we need to use plants with a catapult trajectory. The path followed by a projectile, flying on an object moving under the action of given forces. So yeah, instead of pea shooter, cabbage pult. In 5-1, we don't have a way to replant pots, so we just need to be careful not to let the zombies eat them. Thankfully, they don't send any strong guys over to use. Well, except they do bring over a bungee zombie, which just takes your plant. This level is kind of the tutorial of the end, so there isn't much for us to worry about. We get a pot for winning this level. Crazy Dave is high on marijuana. But the pot is essentially a lily pad for the roof. We need to put it down if we want to place any more plants, or replace pots that have been eaten. My strategy doesn't change much, especially at the beginning of roof. Build sun in the back, then my damage plants, then in the close range, put down chompers and walnuts. For this level being done, we got the kernel pult, which shoots corn kernels, but also sometimes they shoot butter, which freezes enemies. This is like the snow pea of the roof. This is like the blank of the blank. I gotta stop saying that. Brought that bad boy with me into the next level and shredded as usual with no problems at all. Not a single problem ever happened in this stage, except almost when this guy placed a ladder on my repeater and almost climbed over. But other than that, it was just fine. But now we get coffee bean, which I never used. It wakes up sleepy plants. Okay, by the way, does anyone else in the world have the Mandela effect that in this game, during night, your daytime plants didn't work? Because I swear it was like that, but everyone tells me I'm crazy and stupid and that was never the case, and I know it wasn't, but I swear it happened. And no, I wasn't thinking the other way around, because when I was little, I could never get through night, so it couldn't have been. Oh hey, I just beat this really long, unnecessarily, not really that interesting 3-flag level that took me a while I was having a mental breakdown. What? I didn't beat it? I died to a pogo? I then learned from my lesson and forever calmed down to never get upset again. And I also thought longer and harder about each decision I made in the future. It also helped that we made $10,000. Okay, so now we're halfway through Roof and we get a fun minigame level, but not before getting introduced to the Zen Garden after we get the watering can. This set does have a couple of achievements related to the Zen Garden, which is just a little place to relax and grow some plants. It kind of gives me purpose putting my tender care towards these little things, these pixels on my screen. Over time, they grow and give you money, kind of like children. You have them, you raise them, and then force them to give you their money. Now, 5-5 is interesting because it has more of a focus on close-ranged plants like the chomper and cherry bombs. Look at this. I bet you've never seen so many chompers in your life. They eat the zombies, and as a reward, we get garlic. Garlic, I don't use. It makes zombies go to a different lane, but I don't really care about that. I rather let them do what they want. This next level introduces a new enemy, basketball launching catapult zombie. They kind of just throw balls at some of your further back defenses to get some damage in on those. It can get annoying, especially because they have so much health. But if you got a good mix of plants, they aren't all that bad. This level got us the umbrella leaf, which is super helpful because it stops the dang bungee zombies from taking our shit. They have a radius around them kind of like a square, so I placed them around plants that were important and expensive. Except it messes up my perfect columns, but I just dealt with that. For winning here, we get the marigold, which just generates money, so I won't be using that. But now, we see the Garg. The Garg is a massive zombie, big one, and with his kin, his son, which he sends and throws at us, because he has no care for the living. Not even his undead son is spared. Best thing to do about him usually would be to use a squash while the rest of your guys do chip damage. But I didn't bring a squash. Right before he killed me, a cherry bomb was able to take him out, but he did severely weaken my defenses. And then he cloned himself. And once again, I barely took him out. But because I did take him out, I got the best plant ever that I love, the melon pult. I just really like watermelon. Low-key craving it right now. Let me see if there's any in the fridge. Nope, not any. But I used him in the next level because he is very strong. Only thing that could beat one is that one guy that kept cracking watermelons with his head. 5-9 is a 3-flag level because, well, not to make you sad or anything, but the game is over soon. Don't check the time left on this video because we have a lot left. Oh my god. This time I also brought squash with me in case of Garg, but I opted for 3 sunflowers, 1 melon, 1 kernel, 1 cabbage. But things did get spooky for a moment when a Jack-in-the-Box zombie came over blew my stuff up, and then almost let the Garg through. Oh, what do we have here? A beautifully written letter by Dr. Zomboss? He says that, wait, hold on, I can't read this. What language is this? I think it's another language. You have failed to submit our rightful claim. Be advised that unless you comply, we will be forced to take extreme action. Please remit your home and brains to us forthwith. Sincerely, Dr. Zomboss. Okay, so the joke here was supposed to be kids these days can't read cursive, but it was actually so pixelated I had a hard time reading it. I swear I'm not dumb. But now, it is time for the final battle against Dr. Zomboss. So what happens here is there is a giant, large robot who places zombies down on the roof. And we gotta get damage on him every once in a while until his bar goes to full. This final boss stage is really a test of skill. Zombies come at you pretty heavily and things can get crazy fast. The best way to do damage to Zomboss is to try and farm jalapeno and ice shrooms. Because when Zomboss comes down and exposes himself, you can just jalapeno, freeze, chip damage, jalapeno, freeze, chip damage, jalapeno, and so on. Just be careful, don't use all those shrooms and fires because he can spit balls and you need to properly counter them or they'll take out entire rows of plants. Not only do you need to be constantly locked in for the duration of this fight, but you also need good planning. Which to be honest, I didn't have that skill unlocked yet. Wow, look at all these watermelons. Oh, come on, throw an entire camper at me? Are you serious? I do have to say this must be a sturdy roof though to withstand that and an entire Zomboss on top too. Eventually we play enough and get good enough that we destroy Mr. Zomboss and get the achievement Resolute Homeowner. So we have completed the first playthrough of this game, which is good to say because we can kind of take a break from regular PvZ gameplay, but not before a zombie and plant dance party. Can't play the whole thing because of DMCA. Fine. So now that we beat the game, we only have 8 out of 64 of the achievements. Take 8, square that shit, and we'll be done. Okay, so that logic, we're now on page 13 of the script. So 13 squared is 169. So we still probably have 156 pages of script to write. Actually, let's not have that happen and let's talk about the next thing we're gonna do. Before we tackle the second adventure, I want to take a short break from the traditional real-time strategy castle defense gameplay and take a look at a couple of the puzzle modes this game has to offer. Because, well, there are achievements for completing them. The first of the 2 puzzle modes we've got here is Vase Breaker, which we already encountered in 2-5. There are 10 levels for us to complete that have very different gimmicks, which get gradually harder. The first one is just a simple stage, very similar to what we've already done. In between each puzzle, by the way, I was going to check in on the Zen Garden so that I could slowly start growing it up, since like I said, we do have some achievements related to the Zen Garden. But going back to Vase Breaker, this next stage was called To the Left, which incorporated left-facing repeaters as our main damage plan. What's nice about this is you don't run the risk of them ever getting eaten, so that's cool. Stage 3 was called Third Vase. Not really sure what was meant by that. Not gonna look it up either. Gonna rage bait you into leaving a comment. Level 4 was called Chain Reaction because, well, if we hit a vase with one of the Jack-in-the-Box zombies, they go kaboom. And then another one comes out and goes kaboom, until it's too much to bear and we lose the stage. M for metal is called that since we see a ton of bucket and football zombies. But thankfully we get magnets, so we get through it just fine. Scary Potter, because, well, that's a pun the developers could use. Nothing is extra scary or potty about this one. It's kind of just a normal level. The only thing scary really was how close this Walter got to killing my 3-peater. Then we got Hokey Pokey because the main source of damage in this one was spikeweeds. I actually like this level because it's a bit more unique and creative than some of the other ones. We play this stage in a completely new way that I never really considered. Then we have quote unquote another chain reaction, which I think you can guess what happened. Then we got Ace of Vase. This one was definitely hard. I needed to be efficient with my plants, which I was not at all. Look, I was just spamming. This one honestly took me a lot of tries. I kept getting unlucky by just hitting zombies over and over, or sometimes even the Garg first, which forced me to try and find squashes so I could kill him. I will not be lying to you, it was really rough, guys. But eventually I got it and was rewarded with an achievement for beating all of the normal Vase Breaker levels. But we aren't done with Vase Breaker yet. For beating level 10, we unlock Vase Breaker Endless Mode, which has an achievement for me if I'm able to get a streak of 7. And let me just tell you, this is hard. Every wave is pretty much equivalent to Ace of Vase, which already gave me trouble. Now, do it multiple times in a row. This was very tough. And in all honesty, it's because towards the start, I was rushing through it to get the achievement over and done with, which did not work out. Vase Breaker gets harder when your plants need to fight multiple zombies at once. You completely have the ability to slow down and take everything one by one. This game punishes the natural human trait of impatience. One good thing about Endless Mode is that sometimes zombies will drop sun, which eventually lets you save up up for a cherry bomb, which you can use in case of emergency. But even still, this was no joke. For a really long time, the furthest I got to was a streak of 4, which I lost to leaving my top row virtually unguarded. It's also at this point where I remembered I have the ability to fast forward the game, which is going to become very handy very soon. Don't tell on me, please, because I'm just a humble Retro Achievements player. Also, it didn't help that during this, I was watching the season 6 finale of The Walking Dead where Rick Grimes, which is kind of fitting because Rick Grimes. And so that's why it was kind of funny that I was watching a zombie show while playing the cartoon zombie game. It took me around 45 minutes to get that run, which made it to a streak of 7, which I just barely got through. Like, look at streak 5 and how close I was to losing. Holy bejeebus. But yeah, I did it because I'm pretty cool. And we're off to the second of the 2 puzzle modes, iZombie. So in this one, you get to play as the zombie, which is so sick because I've always felt like I could outsmart the plants. These guys are no match for me. Basically, in each stage, you're allowed to use a few zombie types and you need to figure out what is the best way to tackle the plants. The way this works is you pay sun to place a zombie and get more sun by eating sunflowers. Eat the vegetables and you're done. Genuinely though, in later levels, it gets pretty insane. Level 2 lets us use the screen doors, which actually just tears this challenge to shreds. Nothing can stop them whatsoever. Well, I guess the spike weeds could, but they aren't that great. Level 3 is Can You Dig It, which just has minor zombies. Very simple. Place the guy down. He eats it from the back, and there's nothing the plants can do in this stage. Except there's one Voldemort, but still no match for the mine zombies. In level 4, we got some walnuts in the way. Not sure why I didn't take advantage of the ladder zombie at the start. Instead, I sent a bucket head to brute force not 1, but 2 pathways, because, well, I can. For the middle 3 rows, I sent ladder zombies and then bucket heads after them. Still not too hard at all. Dead Zeppelin is called that because bungee zombie and balloon zombie, which is important to use because otherwise this will happen to your bucket head. So I use the bungee to take the magnet, then send bucket head down the trail, and bada bing, bada boom, Bob's your uncle, and you're done with level 5. Me Smash is sick because now I get to be the Garg and just demolish each row. Look how satisfying this was. I felt like God. I felt like with my hands, I could do anything. I can take life, I can bring it forth, I can send a Garg down column 3 for brains. Zomboogie lets us use the hee Michael Jackson zombie. Well, actually I didn't use it at all. Level 8 is 3-hit wonder. I guess because we have the mini Garg or whatever it's called. Once again, won't look it up so I can rage bait you for interaction. Hey, I see you hitting that dislike button. Don't do that. But this level was also very easy. Level 9 is where things actually do get hard. All your brains are belong to us. Wow, what a timely reference, PVZ. Nice going there. This one is actually hard because it's like, well, it has a lot of moving parts you really gotta consider. Tall nuts, magnets, potato mines, all that stuff is here and ready to kill my zombie friends. I would need to bungee the magnet, send my mini Gargs in, miners, you know the drill. It got pretty tough at times, but once I beat it, I got the achievement for this stage and could move on to the Endless iZombie, which similarly to what it was like in Vasebreaker, Endless iZombie is essentially that last stage, but I need to get a streak of 7 again. It genuinely took me a long time to do this one. I would rush too much, make blunders by not studying the pieces on the board. It was a mess at times. But to save you from a long journey of despair, I'll just say the achievement took me 40 minutes. A good 40 minutes straight of just being locked in and trying to figure out what to place where. First thing first was always take out the magnet. Then try to find where I can place my miner for some flank watch, and then I'd observe my surroundings from there and make my best judgment calls. It was pretty tough for an all bronze, no brain guy like me, but we did it. Okay, 2 puzzle modes are now done. What might I have to do next? Well, I think it's time for Second Adventure. So Second Adventure is like harder adventure mode, but there is a twist. Crazy Dave is an asshole and he decides he's gonna pick 3 plants every stage, and you are forced to have them take up 3 seed slots. So now we need to beat the game with a ramped up difficulty and 3 less seed slots, basically. But that's not all though. Each world has a special achievement that I'll be going for during this playthrough, because I do not want to play 5 more hours to get back to roof again. Do not make me do it. So for 1-1, Dave gave us a regular pea shooter, a squash, and a cabbage pult, which honestly isn't the worst since I would have likely used a pea shooter anyway. Now, you might be saying to yourself, this guy has truly finally lost his marbles. What the hell is going on here? Why is he planting so many sunflowers? Well, overly judgmental nerd-voiced viewer, I'm planting all of these sunflowers because I need to rack up over 8,000 sun for an achievement. Things did not go so well the first time around, but I improved my strategy on the second run, which included me buying the twin sunflowers, which left way more room for actual plants. In no time, I was collecting an insane amount of sun, over 8,000. I got the last seed slot from Crazy Dave before moving on here for an achievement, and also an achievement for spending 25k in his shop. Oh, by the way, this is when I started to really abuse the speed up button. So if you see the game speeding up randomly during the rest of this video, pretend it's not happening. 1-2, Dave gave me a pea shooter, repeater, and spikeweed, which was a good pull. Look, more gambling in my mobile game. I gotta love it. The rest of World 1 went without a problem. You can tell though, the amount of zombies coming your way is drastically increased. Like, I mean, sometimes you'll be fending off onslaughts of these things. I really don't think it was this intense the first time around. 1-4 is where I started abusing the torchwood more. This is when the repeater plus torchwood combo became my go-to. Honestly, for like most of the rest of this run. Walnut bowling was just slightly harder than before, and the rest of World 1 was just tediously long levels, which is kind of the theme of the second adventure. Just long stages, which do eventually get really hard. But for now, at least the difficulty is manageable. Our challenge for World 2 was to beat a stage with no sun-producing plants, which just meant we could only use the puff shroom during 2-1. I just had to build up each row and replace any puffs that may have gotten eaten. Nothing really to write home about here. Did this one on try numero uno. Just practicing my Spanish. Something that I started to realize as I got further into World 2 was that the game pretty much starts forcing seed slots to be taken up by certain plants. It was less noticeable when I had to use a fume shroom to take out of the screen door zombies in the first time through because I had a ton of seed slots. But now with 3 slots missing, it is way more obvious that the game is forcing me to use the puff shroom or fume, etc. Sometimes Dave was nice enough to give plants I needed, but most of the time, what am I meant to do with this? These are 3 whole slow status effect plants. Whack-a-Zombie was fun as always, and I didn't run into any issues until 2-7 where I seriously got messed up due to poor efficiency getting my damage plants down. It was a disaster halfway through this long level. It's 7 minutes with me speeding up a lot. So yeah, you could say these got longer. I mean, at least in level 9, I had enough time to get this setup going where I absolutely shredded anything coming my way like I was a cheese grater. World 2 ended with a typical conveyor. Not too tough. I feel like for some reason conveyor stages don't give me much trouble. Might just be me, but I think they don't send too many zombies. In World 3, our challenge was to beat a stage without any water plants, which is easy to do in the earlier stages if you use a 3-peater. They're expensive, but if you do this in 3-1, it should be lenient enough for you to get a bunch of these guys going to get the achievement no problem. I can't lie, this is where things started to get rough in the second adventure. At this point, I'm a little PvZ fatigued, and the stages are getting really hard. Then having effectively only 6 seed slots is starting to weigh on me here. I had a good time in 3-2 through 3-3 figuring out how I was going to get to set up my plants. But 3-4 is where things started to get a bit tedious. This is the first 4 flag level. While this one wasn't too hard and I didn't end up losing on it, it still took, let's see, 10 minutes with speed up. 10 minutes just to do this one level. Which is why after... Okay, I'm gonna kind of break the fourth wall here. I was only able to play for 45 minutes before I had to take another break from the game. This session was only 45 minutes because I just couldn't stomach seeing a bucket head come into the water when I had nothing up yet. That dude was just gonna shred everything and I didn't want to deal. I wasn't having fun. So I took the rest of the night off from playing and scripted instead until I came back and, well, needless to say, I actually beat the level. Maybe I could have not taken a break. Maybe it was necessary. I don't know. But I will say going outside to touch some grass is always good. So my decision was probably the right one. In 3-8, Crazy Dave was nice enough to give me the lily pad. So that was sweet of him. But even though I had that buffer, things got real rough over there at the end. Of course, level 9 is a 4 flag level, but my endless rows of sunflowers and absolute mess of repeaters and chompers were no match for the game. I'm gonna say it, this game finally got hard. Like, look what I was going through in this last wave. I just stopped these zombies in the water long enough so that I could place a chomper, then a second chomper, and then a third while 2 rows above were getting chewed through. If there were no mowers, I would have been done for. 3-10 is a fun conveyor, a lot of 3-peaters and such, not much to say here. But just when I thought things couldn't ever get worse, I now have to deal with fog. And if we remember, I hate fog, not a fan of it. So now I have to play a harder version of it. Isn't that awesome? Seriously, I would give away my life if it meant I could save the world from ever having to play fog again. And if there are any fog fans out there, what's wrong with you? 4-1 through 4-3 went really well. Until 4-4, I got played by this balloon zombie who just ate my cactus and killed my brains. I'm not joking, I died on this stage 4 times, so things had to change. Actually, I kind of just banged my head against the wall doing the same strategy over and over again until somehow, some way, I made it through to the end. 4-5, we get a little nostalgia moment with Vase Breaker here. Reminds me of simpler times. I can remember it like it was just a few minutes ago. But this time, it was baby mode, so there wasn't anything too crazy here. In 4-6, I mostly used the split piece since there were a ton of miner zombies here. And I mean miner in the Minecraft sense. But somehow, the split peas here were strong enough to get me through. Do you recall earlier when I was all like, I underestimated its potential for now? Well, now it was time for me to finally use it, since David gave it to me. Wow, who would have thought? I can see. You know what? I take back when I said I would give my life for this world to be gone. I could have just been using the blower the whole time. Then I went on to spam it in both 4.8 and 4.9, which made my experience 100 times better, especially because they're relatively cheap and replenish fast. But unfortunately, nothing can get me out of a horrendous 4-10. I love playing black screen. It's my favorite game. Now, onto roof, and hopefully this should be smooth sailing and surely nothing will go wrong. This was true for 5-1, where I didn't use any catapult plants in order to get the win. I just did my regular normal level strat, and for doing that, I got an achievement. 5-2 is where things got bad. It was simply a mental roadblock for a little bit. I had to just get used to how the catapult plants worked and the whole currency thing. Keep my sun up and all that. It was really just farm as much sun as possible at the start, stalling actually planting things, then watermelon, kernels, cabbage. Then later down the line, chomper and tall nut. Hey, is anyone watching me play a game where I just sit here and plant entertaining? No? Fair. 5-5 is that one stage where you place a ton of chompers, and in second adventure, this thing gets super intense. Even by flag 2, you can see things start to really ramp up. I got 3 rows of chompers and missing pots everywhere. I genuinely feel like it was luck I made it through this one. I will say the watermelon cannon became one of my favorite plants during roof. It just really does so much damage, so it makes things like the catapult assholes feel like nothing. Like look, 5-6 was just me, my flowers, and my watermelon catapults. 3 columns of them. Would have gone for 4 if I had time. 5-7 was a 4 flag, and Dave actually gave me a mythical pull here. Tall nut, cherry bomb, sunflower. All plants I always use. So I was free to really have a 9 seed slot level, which made this a walk in the park. Watermelons, repeaters, chompers. Got through with no problem. I want you to know that 5-1 to 5-7 took me an hour of playing, and I only got 300 or so words of a script out of it. So really, PvZ is a marathon, and you aren't even seeing a fraction of what I have to go through. I am but one man at the behest of the game. So 5-8 went without a hitch, even though I had to deal with Gargs. And it was on to 5-9, the final full normal level of the second adventure. And as the rest of these past few stages have gone, it was easy with a ton of watermelon cannons and squashes to help kill the Gargs. I almost did lose though. I didn't bring enough explosive plants with me, so the last wave almost made it through all of my defenses. Thankfully, we were good though, and it was on to the Dr. Zomboss fight. Part 2. This Zomboss is similar to the first, except wouldn't you just believe it, he's harder. It seems like he's got more health and he loves to destroy all my plants with RVs and balls. Like the other stages in Roof, there were points where things were looking really bad, but I managed myself decently and was able to make it through with the achievement for beating the second adventure. So now that we're done with that monstrosity of a task, I think it's time to speed things up a bit with this achievement hunting. Because, well, we're really far into this video and only have 19 out of the 64 achievements. But don't worry, we're about to unlock 22 for completing all of the mini games. Starting off with Zombotany, we're tasked with completing a day stage with just a little bit of a twist. This time around, the zombies have plant heads which give them special effects. You have the pea shooter zombie who can do ranged attacks which does some chip damage on our defenses. The other type of zombie in Zombotany is one with a walnut head, which as you may guess just has a ton more health. My classic repeater torchwood setup was perfect for this one and I got through with no issues. Next is walnut bowling, which needs no introduction. It's just a really long bowling level. The only difference is this time we get a new plant, the giant walnut. He's pretty sick. I will say things get rough. They just send so many zombies and so few explodo nuts. So things got sticky with the whole nut thing sometimes, but we made it through. Next, oh my God. Is that what I think it is? I could recognize that from miles away. The red lever, the 3 slots. It's a slot machine. Let's go. Gambling, guys. Let's go to the casino. Get it twisted. If you put all your money on black, you will win. How the slot machine minigame works is you spend 25 sun to take a shot at the slot machine, which can reward you with sun, pea shooters, snow peas, or walnuts. The way to beat this stage is to fend off zombies while you get 2,000 sun. Once you hit 2,000 sun, it ends and you win. But it can be tough because like all good slot machines, you go through dry spells of no rewards. Just like the meme about the diamonds though, I kept going and got 2,000 sun. Ugh. Fog. It's raining seeds is just a fog level, but it's kind of like a conveyor since random plants fall from the sky. It is a 4-flag level though, so it takes a while to get through. I failed the first time around while trying to figure out a good strategy, but I think I really just got unlucky because on my second attempt, I got actually good damage plants, so it wasn't too bad. Next is Begooled. Ever heard of the puzzle game Bejeweled? It was like one of the first popular match 3 games, kind of like, you know, Candy Crush. PopCap made Bejeweled, so they did a little parody here, and it's super interesting. You get a bunch of plants, and in a way, the plants are your jewels. You make matches to beat this stage, you need 75 matches to win. As you make matches, zombies come, and you need to use your plants to also defend. So it's a dance of making matches and making sure your rows have enough defense to fend off the zombies. It is actually surprisingly very engaging. I could play a whole game based around this. It took me quite a long time, but eventually I got through. After Begooled is Invisigool. Oh, I see we're getting creative with the names again, huh? This one was just a pool stage, but the zombies are invisible. Sometimes though, you'll get an ice room, and when used, you get an idea of where the zombies are at. But to be honest, it isn't too bad. Seeing Stars is the next minigame, and in this one, you just need to place star fruits in all of these spots. I don't really know why they made this minigame. Maybe it's an effective star fruit pattern. It's a little weird. But if that last one was weird, this next one is even weirder. So now we have a fish tank of snorkel zombies, and we need to feed them. Hey guys, what is this? Why did you do this? So by feeding them brains, they poop sun, and when they poop sun, you can get more snorkel zombies, and eventually you get 1,000 sun to win. Honestly, it was very creepy. After that one, we got Begooled Twist, which instead of making matches with rows, the plants twist. This one is a lot harder, and I couldn't wrap my head around it as well, but I just spammed click all over the board, and eventually I won. I think I might be stupid. Now we got the shout minigame again. Alright, I'm done here. Next up is a portal minigame, where portals from the game Portal or the game Portal 2 show up. And if a zombie walks through a portal, it warps. Or if a plant sees a portal on the other side, they shoot a zombie on the other side. Portals can get pretty confusing. I don't have a good brain, so it felt like playing in the 4th dimension. But building things up as normal seemed to do the trick for me. The next minigame is actually a very unique one. Column like you see them. In this stage, when you place a plant, it also plants it in every open space in the column. Things get pretty hectic here. I think the zombies have a similar column thing going on here, like where we got 3 Gargs at the same time. Not good, not easy. It took me a few tries to get through this one. Also, using the jalapeno was awesome and satisfying. It just shreds everything. Honestly, I made it through and I don't know how. Now we got Bobsled Bonanza. And here, I was stuck on this one for a long time. It turned out the best thing to do was use pea shooters, bring in spike weeds and chompers to stop the zambonis, and then peppers, cherry bombs, and doom shrooms for large numbers of bobsled zombies. The only way I got through this level was getting the mowers to save me at the very end. Thankfully, after how long that one took me, I had a quick mini game up next, which was Whack a Zombie. It was good to get a mindless mode in here for a second, because that last one took a lot out of me. I just got to spam click here for a while until I won. And would you look at that, we are now over halfway through the set. Next up was Last Stand, which in this mini game, you have to get through a pool stage, except this time you have a spending limit. You don't earn any sun from sunflowers, so what you plant from your 5,000 sun allowance is what you get. I went with a classic here, Repeater, Torchwood, Chomper, Tallnut combo. Needless to say, it did not work. I got through the first wave and got a bit of extra sun, but things went bad fast. So instead, I focused on pure firepower. 3 rows of repeaters, 1 row of torchwoods, and then I tried to start building up tall nuts after. And it worked up until the last flag where the last few zombies got through. Eventually though, it worked and I got the achievement for this minigame. We'll be back here later, by the way. So instead of having another new minigame, we have Zombotany 2, which just has some tougher zombies. A jalapeno head, tall nut, squash, and gatling pea. Getting up those tall nuts ended up being one of the most important things in this stage, just because now the pea shooters can't get the chip damage in on my other plants. Easy peasy. Hey, let's go! Walnut Bowling 2.0, baby! Unfortunately, we only have 5 more mini games left, and they might be some of the most interesting ones in the game. The first of the last is Pogo Party, which as you might guess, has a lot of pogo zombies. So tall nuts are the way to go. Also, if I was smart, I would have brought magnets with me. I have no idea why I didn't, because without the pogos, they're useless. This is what I was looking like at the end. Now we fight Zomboss again. Watch me do it really fast. Now we have Bomb. Altogether here, we got a limit of 25 explosions explosion plants, and we got to get through a whole level. What I did was have a bunch of zombies build up on the walnuts, then have them walk into a potato mine, and then they were done. Sometimes the Gargs made it hard to keep going with my plan because it forced me to blow things up when I didn't want to, but it all worked out in the end. These last two minigames are very special because they're actually exclusive to the DS version of Plants vs. Zombies. The first one is Home Run Derby. In Home Run Derby, you need to score 30 home runs for it to end. To be honest, I did really poorly at first. I was swiping with the stylus, but I had some limp shots. Eventually, I figured out you really need to swipe, and I actually started to get some points on the board. Each home run also gives you sun so you can fend off these baseball zombies who like to get in your way. As the zombies got faster, I started scoring more home runs and finished off this achievement. The last minigame might be my favorite, Air Raid. This bullet hell game is sort of like Galaga. This is very easy to be honest, but very fun because it completely changes the game. Like, this minigame was just made for fun for the heck of it. I love it. There are a couple of power-ups your Gatling P can get, like the 3-peater, which helps do more damage, and pumpkins to give you some extra help. It takes a while to do damage because you aren't too strong, but after beating that, we're done with the minigames. Wait, we're not? Come on, man, this set is so long. Okay, so before we're done with the minigames, we have a few extra achievements for challenges within the minigames. The first one I went for was trying to beat Zombotany using 12 or less plants. The description of this one is kind of misleading, to be honest. This achievement triggers if there's never a point with more than 12 plants throughout your run, not 12 plants total. So if I have a plant get eaten, I can safely replace it. Or if I want to delete a sunflower or something, I can replace it with another plant. I didn't do this right on my first try, but on my second try, started to do it correctly. Next was something similar in Zombotany 2. This time, it was a 20 plant limit. And yes, when you place a plant on top of a lily pad, it counts as 2 plants. My bread and butter in this one was cattails, since they can do damage all around the map. And since they can only be placed in water, I would just reinforce with walnuts. And I got through with 7 cattails at the end. All right, we're almost out of the minigame hole here. We only have 2 left, so let's do this. Now we had to do Pogo Party with 36 or less plants. And this was extremely hard. So thanks to the Retro Achievements site, I was able to find this strategy that worked pretty well for me. You still have to be super efficient with the farming and planting, and it felt like I had to be a little lucky. It took me quite a few tries to get it right. The setup is as follows. Delete rows 1 and 5, 2 rows of sunflowers to build up sun, then get glooms as early as possible. They're incredibly expensive though. To get a gloom up and running, it costs 450 sun if we include pots and pumpkin. After you have a gloom or 2, you need to quickly get in some magnets. Then eventually delete row 2 of sunflowers and replace those with magnets too. If you get past the early phase, you should be good to go. It just plays itself once you have the setup going. The final minigame achievement is Perfect Defense, where I need to complete Last Stand with 1,750 sun left at the end. Once again, massive shout out to the Retro Achievements comment section for this one because I found this setup. 4 garlic, 2 glooms, 2 magnets, 2 more glooms, 2 more magnets, 2 more glooms, then tall nut, gap, 2 more tall nuts, gap, tall nut, mine, 2 weeds, 1 last mine, and we're good. This almost gave out at the very end, but I made it through thankfully. So now that we have finally completed every minigame based achievement, there are a few different categories we have left. We've got a few 100% achievements for getting the full almanac and full plants and the wisdom tree. Then survival mode achievements for completing the 10 different survival modes, and then finally endless survival up until both 8 and then 16 flags. I went into my Zen garden and completely unintentionally got the achievement for getting 10 fully sized plants, which I then sold for money for Crazy Dave's shop. Then I could get the full almanac. Now, let's start with Endless Day Easy. So basically, these are just all really long PvZ levels. At certain intervals, we get to choose new seeds in case we need them. But otherwise, it isn't anything too crazy in terms of concept. I started with building up All Reliable, except also I started using twin plants, and that worked like an absolute charm. Things weren't too different for Night Easy, because early on I was able to farm sun while planting a ton of little shrooms. Then built up tons of repeaters, and well, it's the same old formula. Pretty much the same for Pool Easy. I promise these start to get more interesting, by the way. I won't even mention Fog because fog. And then finally Roof, where I chose to use far more watermelons, which this is quite an interesting setup. So much watermelon. Okay, so this is where things start to get more interesting, like I said. Hard Survival both have more harder zombie waves, but also more waves in general. Double the flags, actually. So these achievements started to take me a while. Starting with Day, I needed to build up a setup that was 1, impenetrable, 2 had insane damage, 3 generated a ton of sun, and 4 left room for error, meaning it was easy to build back up if we got something eaten. And it was not easy to do this on my own. So thanks to the wonderful world of YouTube, I got some pretty good suggestions. For day, I honestly didn't have to make that many changes to my normal setup. I just needed to start using Gatling peas. It's all about getting your sun economy up at the start so you start to snowball. You know you're doing well when you aren't restrained by the amount of sun, but how fast cooldowns are. Gatling peas go crazy and do massive damage, especially when paired with torchwoods. Also, something that I haven't mentioned in this entire script is how bad the frames per second can be in this game. Like, look at this. How is this even still running? Hey, we found chocolate for an achievement and finished up the 10 flags for another. Okay. Now, Night Hard. Setup for this one actually uses the sun shrooms against my will, but we built up puffs, then replaced them with melons, then freeze melons, and finally got a ton of Gatling peas in there. It was helpful to keep my explosive economy good with cherries and dooms that helped me get through a-okay. Alright, pool. Here we're gonna use some cattails. Make sure those are defended, then make sure to get Gatling peas, torchwoods, and spike traps. We need many spike traps because we are gonna get some zombonis coming in this level. Getting in a ton of walnuts and then replacing them when you get ladders building off of them is important. I also started adding some split peas in here after the torchwoods for when miners started to dig into my flank. If you have a nice setup and keep up your tall nuts and pumpkins, shouldn't be very hard. Fog though, this one gave me some trouble, and this is why. Other than my normal beef with fog, you need to keep track of multiple things at once, making sure to build up the right amount of sun while also balancing that with placing your watermelons and ice watermelons. Then also keeping an eye on what types of zombies are in the next wave. One of the big killers for me was mining zombies, because sometimes they just come out of nowhere and there isn't much that can counter them if you aren't already prepared for it. So I started replacing some of my sunflowers with twin sunflowers. But even still, this only helps so much because if mining zombies came through, well, they could just eat all of my sunflower production and make the rest of the waves way harder. Needless to say, this took a ton of practice being able to juggle everything properly. That being said, this wasn't the hardest of the achievements we have left. Not even close. To the surprise of probably every single person on the planet ever, Roof genuinely wasn't bad. Like Fog, I needed to keep up with the GPH. Good plant hygiene? Never heard of it? Everyone says that. It's like the new thing. But Fog prepared me a bit for this. Once again, the watermelons were overpowered. I also needed to make sure to put 4 umbrella leaves in the stage just to make sure that none of my plants were stolen. Building up as much tall nut defense and pumpkin defense was the strat. Right at the end of the 7 flag stage, things got rough, and I thought I wasn't going to make it through any more waves. All of my plants were whittled down very low, but thankfully I had a decent amount of sun already, and the cooldowns for watermelon and pots are pretty fast, so I could try and repair that at least. Getting into the final wave with the Gargs, I made sure to have as many explosive plants as possible. I had cherry bombs, jalapeno, doom shroom, and that was that. So now we only have 5 achievements left in the set, and let me tell you, I may have saved the hardest ones for last, which I guess makes sense to be honest. But before we get into those, I do have a very quick one we can do. I still haven't bought everything out from Crazy Dave's shop, so I'm going to do that super fast next. I bought the last Zen Garden theme from Dave, but the achievement didn't pop, so I was a bit confused. As it turns out, you also need to have 20 fertilizer and 20 bug spray for it to pop, which was not clear in the description of the achievement. But first, I needed a little extra cash, so I tried this completely botched marigold farm. That didn't work, by the way, until I had enough to buy what I needed. Okay, so our last 4 achievements are as follows. Get to 8 flags in Survival Endless, get to 16 flags in Survival Endless, and then feed the Wisdom Tree 50 times, then 100 times. And to be honest, I don't know which category of achievement was harder on my mental. I knew that I was gonna need a lot of money to feed the Wisdom Tree 100 times, because each pack of fertilizer for the tree costs $2,500, which, if you can do math, 2.5k times 100 equals $250,000. Way more than we have right now. It doesn't help that the Wisdom Tree gives you useless water is wet knowledge after each feeding. I figured that maybe playing Survival Endless would help us getting there, so I hopped in to try and get the 8 flag achievement. Survival Endless takes place in pool for some reason. I guess just to add a little extra challenge, you know? Basically, this is what I have for defenses. In the first 2 flags, I bought Lily Pad, Sunflower, Potato Mine, Gloom Shroom, Corn Catapult, Cattail, and Twin Sunflower. The goal was to start farming and have started building up Gloom Shrooms. The Cattails were great early game for before I had the Glooms down, since they have homing spikes which help during that phase. And at this point, I'll be real with you, I was not good at managing what was coming my way. I had 2 Glooms get eaten and then had to replace them early on my way to flag 3. The main point of these next couple flags is to get my cob cannons down, which if we're doing our sunflower farming correctly is easy to do. Well, if I didn't get my brains eaten. But as you can see on my next try, things were far better. Way more glooms, and I even got started building up watermelons in the back rows and pumpkins to defend my glooms. Endless is such a snowbally game mode. It's all dependent on how well you do early game, and I was really starting to understand that. The next waves I had to deal with zombonis, but we had our cob cannons up, so if I was fast enough, I could stop them early. Things started to get spicy though when during flag 7 I had bungees eating some of my good plants. But thankfully I made it through and survived through flag 8, getting that achievement once again barely. This was almost horrible. I couldn't really continue after that last wave, so I backed out hoping I could make some progress on the wisdom tree, which yeah, things weren't looking too hot. I did have one little advantage though. I had some marigolds in my Zen garden that were almost fully grown. Once they were, I could sell them for a cool 3,000 gold, which would help put a dent in these 2 wisdom tree achievements. Also, I wasn't too far off of the 50 chivo, so I went to do some marigold farming in last stand, which I still wasn't using a great strat, so it wasn't looking good. But by the time I went back to the Zen garden, my marigolds were ready for fertilizer, so I grew them, sold them all for tree food, and was able to get right over that line for 50. So I was sort of at a weird spot here. I didn't know whether I wanted to go for 16 flags endless, or if I wanted to grind for the last 50 tree food. Although it's a bit worse for the story of this video, I decided to go for the 16 flags endless first, because, well, we could rack up some money while doing it. And I'm glad I started this now, because this was a monolithic task. To be honest, the strat I was going for was the exact same as what I did for 8 flags, but the problem was that there was no room for error, which I was completely unprepared for. As we get further and further along in flags, the waves of zombies just get huge. I personally wasn't ready to have to always keep an eye on what zombies were coming up next, what zombies were eating what lanes, etc. The main issue was keeping up with my pumpkin defenses, because it gets really hard to see, especially with these glooms in the water. My first attempt that made it past flag 9, I just gave up because I was so weak and didn't see myself getting much further. The next attempt was going very well until I got overwhelmed by the whole pumpkin thing. With all my grooms in the pool down, too much damage was done for me to keep going much longer. And it was the same exact story with the next attempt, except this time I made a huge blunder. I'm not sure how this happened, but I went back into the game without bringing any pumpkins with me. I'm sure you can guess how well that went. 2 tries later though, this is where things took a turn for the better. There were 3 major things that helped me get through this 16 flag achievement. 1, proactivity and frequency with my cob cannons. The moment I saw that a big wave was coming, I'd send them out flying. This really helped with waves that had things like jack-in-the-box or gargs. Since I have 4 cannons, it's easy to time the missiles well enough so that you never have the issue of running out. 2, in later phases, keeping most of my focus on my pumpkins. I would be constantly hovering pumpkins that were weak so I could place them as early as I could, because when you lose 1 gloom, it's a snowball effect. And 3, knowing what zombies were coming in the next couple of waves. By paying attention to the zombie types, I could better pick and choose what special plants I wanted and forfeit some others, like bringing spikeweeds when there are zombonis, or extra explosive with gargs. After flag 12 is where things really got serious. Like, serious. There were giga gargs coming in, which have way more health than a normal garg. And they're also coming in to break my spikeweeds, which is just not cool. But at that point, I'd become way better with the cob cannons, so it wasn't that bad for me. There was a point where the bottom row got completely chopped, but I made sure to put a pumpkin there as soon as it was safe to. Then flags 15 and 16, well, but in the end I made it through. It took me 5 hours straight of attempts just to get this 1 achievement. For reference, that last attempt, that 1, took about 45 minutes. So these attempts were long. But now that that was done, I had 1 thing left to do. And well, this was going to be a massive grind. I found this marigold farm online and just sat back for that in the Zen garden. How about we montage? Well, that's it for the game. I fed the trees last food, and we've mastered this set after, oh my god, 34 hours and 31 minutes? Jesus Christ! Well, it turns out that what I thought would be a fun little set to do ended up being the hardest set I've ever tackled, but not for long. Also, don't forget to subscribe.